This story reveals how one woman's hidden intelligence brought down a tech empire through the power of language, dignity, and preparation meeting opportunity. Your grammar is incorrect, Mr. Blackstone. Just like your assumptions about my intelligence. The word sliced through the Manhattan penthouse air like a blade through silk. Spoken in perfect German. By the woman they paid to scrub their toilets. Victor Blackstone's $50,000 wine glass trembled in his manicured hand. The crystal caught the city lights 40 floors below, refracting his shock into 1,000 broken pieces. Around the mahogany dining table, 12 of America's most powerful billionaires sat frozen mid-chew, their platinum forks suspended in expensive air, caviar melting on their tongues. The silence stretched so complete you could hear the elevator music drifting up from the lobby 400 feet below. The only sound was the soft click of Zara's heels as she set down the wine decanter and straightened her spine. In that moment, her entire posture transformed. Gone was the invisible servant who had moved through their conversations like furniture. Standing before them now was someone else entirely. Victor's face cycled through confusion, recognition, then pure terror as the magnitude of what just happened crashed over him like a tsunami. The woman they called just the help had just spoken German more fluently than the Harvard-educated billionaire who spent 3 years mocking her education. More fluently than the man who had used that same language for hours to hide criminal conversations, assuming she was too ignorant to understand. But how did she know German? And why had she stayed silent until now? Every private conversation about insider trading, every cruel joke about her intelligence, every criminal confession they thought was secret, she had understood every single word. In today's world, nothing stays private forever, and Victor was about to learn that lesson in the most expensive way possible. This wasn't just about language. This was about the moment when expensive emptiness met priceless integrity. When years of preparation collided with one perfect opportunity. When a woman who had been treated as invisible decided to become unforgettable. Victor's billions couldn't buy him the one thing he needed most in this moment. Respect earned through character instead of demanded through wealth. And the woman standing before him possessed everything his money could never purchase. Dignity, intelligence, and the moral authority that comes from being underestimated and choosing excellence anyway. 30 minutes earlier, none of these powerful people knew they were about to witness the most expensive lesson in human dignity in tech history. They had no idea that their casual cruelty was being recorded, analyzed, and prepared for public consumption by someone far smarter than any of them had bothered to notice. The woman who cleaned their floors was about to clean house in ways they never imagined. Hey Soul Thread family, if you'd like to support the channel and help us keep creating these stories of hope, I've pinned a support link in the comments below. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you've ever been invisible at work while people said things they'd never say to your face, this story will hit different. Drop AIs if you've been underestimated because of your job, your accent, or where you come from. Because what happened next would prove that intelligence always finds a way to rise, that character always defeats wealth in the end, and that the most dangerous person in any room is the one everyone assumes doesn't matter. The Maid was about to become the master of their fate. 3 months before that devastating German response, Victor Blackstone was getting a deep tissue massage in his corner office while firing 37 people via email. His phone buzzed with incoming calls, 47 missed calls from desperate employees begging to keep their jobs. He deleted each voicemail without listening, laughing as skilled hands worked the tension from his shoulders. Dead weight, he told his masseuse, scrolling through termination notices. Should have cut them months ago. His $300,000 watch, a Patek Philippe his grandfather would have called obscene, timed exactly how long his cleaning staff could use the bathroom. 6 minutes maximum. Any longer triggered payroll deductions. This was a man whose German immigrant grandfather had built the family's first business with calloused hands and honest sweat. That grandfather spoke German as a bridge to opportunity, not as a weapon against the powerless. But Victor had forgotten those roots entirely, transforming his heritage language into a tool of exclusion rather than connection. What Victor never noticed was how his invisible staff moved through his world with quiet intelligence burning behind tired eyes. Zara had been counting. Day 1 of 847 since she first stepped into his penthouse. Day 1 was also when she started her German lessons online, cramming vocabulary during her 15-minute lunch breaks. She ate discount ramen while studying grammar rules that Victor butchered daily. By day 200, she was listening to advanced economics podcasts during her hour-long commute on 2 buses and a subway train. Professors from Columbia and Harvard filled her earbuds while she carried cleaning supplies that cost more than her monthly rent. Day 400 brought weekend business law courses. While Victor bought his 4th mansion, Zara sat in community college classrooms learning about insider trading regulations and SEC violations. Her notebook stayed hidden under industrial-strength floor polish, filled with German vocabulary and detailed notes about criminal conspiracy laws. By day 600, she had learned that New York is a one-party consent state. Her phone, tucked discreetly in her cleaning apron, began recording conversations for what she called language practice. Perfectly legal. Perfectly strategic. Her studio apartment told 2 stories. Medical bills from her brother Dawit's surgery in Addis Ababa stacked like white snow across her kitchen table. Payment plans negotiated in careful English with billing departments that put her on hold for hours. $400 sent overseas every week, leaving her $23 for groceries. But beside those bills sat German literature, economics textbooks, and legal journals. Her small space had transformed into a learning laboratory where the American dream took shape one lesson at a time. In America, you can change your circumstances through education. Knowledge is the one thing no one can take away from you. She wasn't the only one hiding intelligence behind a uniform. The chef who prepared Victor's organic meals was a trained architect from Lebanon, designing buildings in his head while julienning vegetables. The driver who navigated Manhattan traffic held an MBA from Mumbai, calculating compound interest while sitting in gridlock. The security guard who nodded respectfully at Victor's guests spoke 5 languages fluently, including Mandarin and Arabic. Society overlooks their dreams because it's easier to see the service, not the person providing it. Attention to detail separates good help from great help, Victor would tell Zara, making her re-clean surfaces that already gleamed. She apologized in careful, measured English while her German-fluent mind translated his ignorance perfectly. The power imbalance was suffocating, but it was also educational. Every cruel comment became data. Every assumption became evidence. She moved through his penthouse like she'd been invisible her whole life. But some people aren't born invisible. Some people choose it while they prepare for their moment. While Victor discussed bribing senators in German, assuming his staff was too uneducated to understand, Zara memorized every word. While he planned to destroy competitors through false rumors, she took mental notes. While he laughed about evading taxes in 3 countries, she learned the penalties for each crime. Victor's cruelty wasn't random. It was systematic. He treated human beings like replaceable machinery, timing their bathroom breaks and deleting their desperate calls without a second thought. His wealth had become expensive emptiness, buying him everything except basic human decency. But Zara built bridges where Victor built walls. She learned the names of every staff member, asked about their families, shared her small portions of lunch with anyone working a double shift. Her actions created community while his created fear. Type invisible if you've ever been treated like you don't matter because of your job. Some of the most brilliant people in America are serving your coffee, cleaning your offices, and raising your children while working toward dreams you can't imagine. What Victor didn't know was that his uneducated maid had spent 847 days preparing for this exact moment. And what she was learning would cost him everything. Day 847 was today. Preparation was about to meet opportunity in the most explosive way possible. The dinner party that would destroy Victor Blackstone began with handshakes worth billions and ended with handcuffs worth nothing. 12 of America's most powerful elites gathered in his penthouse that evening, each representing fortunes built on the backs of people they'd never bothered to see as human. The guest list read like a who's who of corporate cruelty. Klaus Weber flew in from Berlin, Victor's business partner who had helped him acquire 3 German startups through tactics that skirted the edge of legality. Ingrid Hoffmann arrived from Switzerland, the private banker who managed Victor's labyrinthine tax evasion schemes across 7 countries. Robert Chen, the self-made entrepreneur whose company Victor planned to destroy through coordinated false rumors, sat unknowingly at the same table as his future assassin. 8 other tech moguls completed the circle, men and women who had accumulated wealth by treating human beings like expendable resources. The dinner cost more than most Americans earn in a year. Each course represented weeks of Zara's wages, yet they discussed her presence like she was decorative furniture that happened to have ears. The economic inequality wasn't just visible, it was weaponized, designed to remind everyone of their place in the hierarchy. Zara moved between them carrying wine worth $2,000 per bottle, her face a mask of professional courtesy while her mind recorded every word, every gesture, every admission of guilt that spilled from their lips like expensive poison. The German began innocuously enough. "Beautiful weather today," Klaus mentioned casually in German, testing the waters. "I doubt the staff understands what we're saying." Victor's eyes lit up with malicious delight. Here was his secret language, his private club, his weapon of exclusion. "Excellent point," he replied in German, glancing at Zara as she refilled water glasses. "Complete privacy." They laughed like children who had discovered a new game. By the second course, their German conversations had escalated to personal attacks. "Look at her trying to look intelligent," Victor said in German, pointing his fork toward Zara as she served plates worth more than her monthly rent, probably thinking about her next government check. The table erupted in German laughter while Zara's hands remained steady, her eyes focused on her tasks. Inside, her mind was translating perfectly, filing away every cruel word like evidence in a criminal case. Round 3 brought criminal confessions that would have made FBI agents weep with joy. "The senator's aide costs us $50,000 monthly," Klaus mentioned in German, cutting into his Wagyu beef, "but worth every penny for those insider votes on the tech regulation bill." Victor nodded enthusiastically. "Money well spent. Robert's company will be worthless once that legislation passes. He has no idea we wrote half the language ourselves." Robert Chen continued eating, oblivious to the German conversation plotting his financial destruction happening 3 feet away. Zara served the next course while they detailed bribery schemes, tax evasion strategies, and market manipulation tactics worth hundreds of millions. Every word in German, every assumption that she was too ignorant to understand, every criminal confession building a federal case that would dominate headlines for years. But Victor wasn't finished. Wine had emboldened him, and the audience of fellow predators had amplified his cruelty beyond all reason. He had forgotten his grandfather's German immigrant struggles, transforming his heritage language from a bridge to opportunity into a weapon against the powerless. Zara honored both her Ethiopian and German heritage, seeing languages as connections between cultures, not tools for exclusion. While Victor used German to dehumanize, she used it to understand, to prepare, to build the case that would bring justice. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, teaching her dignity even in the face of cruelty. Her brother's medical bills demanded strategy, not emotion. Her PhD training screamed for justice, but her survival instincts demanded patience. She wasn't just enduring the abuse. She was calculating the precise moment when 847 days of preparation would meet the opportunity of a lifetime. Every German word was a loaded gun pointed at Victor's own future. Every assumption was building the case that would destroy him. But why was she letting him dig his own grave so deep? Because she understood something Victor had never learned. that true power comes from preparation, not position. That intelligence always finds a way to rise above circumstance. That character always defeats wealth when the moment is right. The guests' laughter grew louder as their cruelty escalated, creating a feedback loop of entitled mockery. They were performing for each other, competing to see who could be most creative in their dehumanization of the woman serving their dinner. Victor stood, emboldened by wine and the approval of his fellow predators. He raised his glass and prepared to deliver what he believed was private mockery while pointing directly at Zara. The toast that would destroy his life was about to begin. If hearing someone mock a person's intelligence in a foreign language while they serve dinner made you angry, you understand why what happens next was inevitable. Drop respect if everyone deserves dignity regardless of their job, accent, or background. The words Victor spoke next in German would cost him $12 billion and his freedom. He had no idea he was about to meet someone who spoke his private language better than he did. Zara set down the wine decanter and raised her chin, refusing to be diminished 1 second longer. The trap was set. The moment had arrived. Victor Blackstone raised his crystal glass high above the table, his face flushed with wine and absolute confidence. The room fell silent as he prepared to deliver what he believed would be the evening's crowning joke. In German, he began his toast, pointing directly at Zara as she stood beside the serving cart. "Here's to the natural order," he declared in German, his voice dripping with condescension, "where intelligence rises to the top and ignorance serves where it belongs. Our little Ethiopian princess here reminds us daily why some people clean and others conquer." The German-speaking guests erupted in laughter, raising their glasses to toast their superiority over the woman who had been invisible to them all evening. This was Victor's expensive emptiness on full display, his belief that money equaled superiority, that status equaled worth, that circumstances determined capacity. He had no idea he had just lit the fuse on 847 days of preparation. Zara set down the wine decanter with deliberate precision. The soft clink of crystal against marble cut through their laughter like a blade. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and spoke in German so perfect it made Victor's pronunciation sound like a child playing dress-up. "Excuse me, Mr. Blackstone, but I must correct several errors in your toast." The laughter died instantly. 12 faces turned toward her with expressions of shock that would have been comical if the moment weren't so devastating. Victor's glass trembled in his hand as the words sank in, perfect German, flawless accent, academic precision that made his Harvard education seem like amateur hour. "Your grammar violates basic German syntax," she continued in flawless German, her voice steady and professorial, "and your pronunciation reveals American education attempting European sophistication." Klaus Weber choked on his $500 wine, sputtering liquid across his designer shirt. Ingrid Hoffman's phone clattered to the floor as her hands began shaking. The non-German speakers looked frantically between faces, realizing they were witnessing something seismic but unable to comprehend the magnitude. Victor's face began draining color like a time-lapse flower dying in reverse. But Zara wasn't finished with Phase 1. "Your toast assumes current circumstances indicate permanent capacity," she continued in German, her tone now carrying the authority of someone who had earned the right to speak. "This is a logical fallacy my professors at Humboldt University would have marked you down for." Humboldt University. The words hit the room like a lightning bolt. One of Germany's most prestigious institutions, where PhD candidates spend years mastering not just knowledge but the art of intellectual precision. The woman they had been mocking as ignorant held a doctorate from an institution that would reject most of them despite their wealth. Phase 2 was about demonstrating that language truly is power, and Zara held all the cards. "Since you've spent 3 hours discussing insider trading and tax evasion in what you believed was a private language," she said in German, her tone becoming clinical, almost scientific in its precision, "I should mention that I've been recording everything for my German conversation practice. Quite educational." The word recording hit the room like a physical blow. Ingrid frantically began deleting banking apps from her phone. Klaus grabbed his jacket, already calculating flight times to non-extradition countries. Robert Chen, who had been eating dinner oblivious to the German conversations plotting his destruction, finally understood why everyone looked terrified. Victor's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air that would never come. Phase 3 had revealed that preparation meeting opportunity wasn't just a concept. It was a weapon of mass destruction aimed directly at their criminal empire. But Zara saved the most devastating blow for last. "I'm not your little Ethiopian princess," she said in German, her voice carrying the strength of every ancestor who had fought for dignity, every immigrant who had transformed struggle into strength. "I'm Dr. Zara Kidane, and I speak German better than someone who uses it to hide criminal conversations." Dr. Zara Kidane. The name hung in the air like a judgment from heaven itself. The power dynamic in the room didn't just flip. It exploded and reformed with Zara at its center. Suddenly, 12 of America's most powerful people were looking to a woman they had treated as furniture for what would happen next. She was no longer serving them. She was commanding their fate. The workplace hierarchy that had defined every interaction for months crumbled in real time. This was why she had stayed silent for 847 days. Not from ignorance, but from strategy. Not from weakness, but from preparation. She had been building a federal case while they built their own prison, one arrogant word at a time. Her response represented everything America promises: that education can overcome any circumstance, that hard work can triumph over inherited wealth, that preparation can defeat privilege when the moment arrives. The American dream wasn't just alive in that penthouse. It was delivering justice with surgical precision. Victor finally found his voice, but it came out as a desperate whisper. You're nothing. A maid. I'll have you deported." Zara's smile could have powered Manhattan. "I'm a U.S. citizen with a Ph.D. who just recorded you confessing to multiple felonies. Which of us is nothing, Mr. Blackstone? Which of us has character?" The moment Victor realized that every private conversation about crimes, affairs, and cruelty had been witnessed by someone who could destroy him professionally and legally, his expensive world began collapsing like a house of cards in an earthquake. Zara's response didn't just defend herself. It defended every service worker who had been treated as invisible, every immigrant who had been underestimated, every person judged by their circumstances rather than their character. Her voice carried the strength of millions who had been dismissed, diminished, and undervalued. She refused to be intimidated, diminished, or silenced. Her intelligence and competence had just triumphed over male arrogance and false superiority in the most public way possible. If watching someone reclaim their power after being underestimated gave you chills, hit subscribe. This is what happens when intelligence meets opportunity, when preparation meets the moment. Drop brilliant if you believe in the power of education and self-improvement. But Zara wasn't finished. What she said next would trigger federal investigations, destroy 3 billionaires by morning, and prove that true power comes from integrity, not net worth. The Maid had just become the master of their fate, and justice was about to be served at room temperature. Zara reached into her apron pocket and produced her phone with the calm precision of a surgeon revealing a scalpel. The device that Victor's guests had dismissed as another tool of the servant class was about to become the instrument of their destruction. "New York is a one-party consent state," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent months studying legal precedents. "I have 3 hours of recorded conversations about federal crimes. Your discussion of bribing Senator Martinez's aide was particularly detailed." The words hit the room like a tsunami of consequences. This wasn't just about German fluency or educational credentials. This was about federal evidence that could send them all to prison for decades. Every recording had been strategic. For 847 days, Zara had been learning not just German, but business law, evidence collection, and her legal rights. She understood SEC regulations, insider trading penalties, and the federal sentences for conspiracy charges. When opportunity finally knocked, she didn't just answer the door, she had built the entire house. The panic sequence began immediately. Klaus Weber bolted toward the elevator, his phone pressed to his ear as he desperately called his German lawyer. "Emergency extraction," he whispered in English, his voice cracking with terror. "Federal exposure imminent." Ingrid Hoffmann's hands shook so violently she could barely hold her phone as she deleted banking apps one by one. Swiss account numbers, offshore shell companies, tax evasion schemes. All the digital evidence of her crimes disappeared into the ether, but she knew it was too late. The recordings would tell investigators exactly where to look. Robert Chen, the self-made entrepreneur who had been eating dinner while his destruction was planned in German, grabbed his phone and started live streaming. "Victor Blackstone just confessed to destroying my company using false rumors," he announced to his millions of followers. "This is happening live, right now." The English-speaking guests demanded translations while frantically grabbing coats and calling their lawyers. The exclusive dinner party had transformed into a crime scene evacuation in real time. Victor's meltdown was spectacular in its desperation. "You're nothing," he screamed, his composure completely shattered. "A maid. I'll have you deported." Zara's response carried the weight of earned dignity. "I'm a U.S. citizen with a Ph.D. who just recorded you confessing to multiple felonies. Which of us is nothing, Mr. Blackstone? Which of us has character?" Robert Chen's livestream was already going viral. Within minutes, hashtags began trending across every platform. Hashtag German-made takedown exploded as viewers shared the story of a brilliant woman who had used linguistic assumptions against the people who underestimated her. Hashtag Invisible No More spread globally as service workers everywhere recognized their own experiences in Zara's story. Legal experts flooded social media explaining why recorded confessions matter, how one-party consent laws work, and what federal penalties Victor and his co-conspirators were facing. The education was happening in real time as millions of Americans learned about corporate crime through one woman's courage. The invisible workforce across America began rising. Domestic workers shared stories of Ph.D. credentials hidden behind cleaning supplies. Drivers revealed MBA degrees tucked into glove compartments. Nannies with medical degrees from their home countries found their voices. The movement around recognizing hidden talents had found its catalyst. Victor's phone buzzed incessantly with panicked calls from board members who had seen the live stream. Stock prices dropped on trading apps in real time as investors realized the full scope of the criminal exposure. His empire wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing at light speed. Through it all, Zara stood calm in the center of the chaos she had created through intelligence, preparation, and unshakable moral authority. The woman who had been invisible for nearly 3 years was now the most powerful person in the room. The complete power reversal was breathtaking to witness. Billionaires who had treated her like furniture now begged her not to release the recordings. They offered bribes, threats, and desperate pleas while she calmly explained which crimes carried which sentences. Her education had become her armor, and their ignorance had become their prison. International coverage began immediately. German media praised their lost daughter, who had found her voice in America. Ethiopia celebrated her as a bridge between cultures, proof that heritage could be strength rather than burden. Her multilingual skills had transformed from invisible assets into global superpowers. Victor made one final desperate attempt to salvage his crumbling world. "Name your price," he whispered, his voice breaking with desperation. "Anything. I'll pay anything. 50 million. 100 million. Whatever it takes." Zara's response revealed the difference between character and wealth in its purest form. "The only price for years of humiliation is the truth," she said, her voice steady as stone. "And truth isn't for sale. Character isn't for sale." The words carried the weight of every person who had ever been diminished by their circumstances, every immigrant who had been underestimated by their accent, every service worker who had been treated as invisible while possessing extraordinary talents. Type karma. If you believe people who treat others as invisible should face real consequences. Share this with someone who's ever been underestimated because of their job title, accent, or background. Social media algorithms amplified the story across continents. The viral moment resonated because it represented universal human experiences, being overlooked, undervalued, and finally vindicated. Zara's individual courage was creating ripples across society, proving the American promise that anyone can rise through merit and hard work. But this was just the beginning. What happened over the next 24 hours would rewrite the rules of corporate accountability forever. By sunrise, 3 billionaires would be arrested, 1 company would collapse, and Zara would become the most famous former maid in America. But the real transformation was just beginning. The woman who had cleaned their floors was about to clean house in the justice system itself. The first 24 hours after Zara's revelation moved with the unstoppable momentum of justice finally unleashed. Hour 1 brought global #domination. #InvisibleNoMore exploded across every platform as the story reached 47 countries within 60 minutes. The community response was immediate and powerful. Millions of people recognized their own experiences of being underestimated, overlooked, and undervalued. By hour 6, FBI agents in tactical gear were carrying boxes labeled evidence from Victor's corner office while news helicopters circled overhead. Zara's recordings had given federal investigators a roadmap to crimes they had suspected but could never prove. The meticulous preparation of 847 days was paying dividends in real time. Hour 12 brought the SEC's formal announcement of their investigation into insider trading, market manipulation, and securities fraud. The agency's press release specifically mentioned credible audio evidence provided by a whistleblower that detailed criminal conspiracies worth hundreds of millions. Klaus Weber made it as far as JFK Airport before federal marshals arrested him at hour 18, his private jet grounded on the tarmac while he frantically called international lawyers. His attempted flight to Germany only confirmed his guilt in the eyes of prosecutors who had listened to every recorded word. By hour 24, Victor's company stock had become worthless digital paper. Investors fled en masse as the scope of criminal liability became clear. The empire built on cruelty and deception collapsed faster than it had taken Zara to clean a single room. Media coverage exploded globally with headlines that captured the story's profound justice. Tech billionaire's racist rant backfires when PhD made records criminal confessions. Every major network led with the story that had awakened a national conversation about respect and human dignity. But the most powerful impact came from the invisible workforce finding their voices. A janitor in Detroit revealed his engineering PhD from Syria, earned before war, forced him to flee with nothing but his knowledge. A nanny in Los Angeles shared her background as a surgeon from the Philippines, now caring for children while studying for U.S. medical licensing exams. A rideshare driver in Chicago displayed his MBA from Nigeria, driving nights while building his consulting business during the day. A hotel cleaner in Miami spoke about her former position as a university professor in Venezuela, cleaning rooms while teaching ESL classes on weekends. Every story reinforced the same truth. Talent exists everywhere, but opportunity remains limited by assumptions and prejudice. Zara's recordings triggered a legal avalanche that would reshape corporate accountability forever. Federal insider trading investigations opened across 3 states. Tax evasion charges were filed in multiple jurisdictions as international authorities coordinated their response. A Senate inquiry into corporate bribery launched with bipartisan support. Banking fraud investigators across 4 countries began tracing offshore accounts mentioned in the recorded conversations. Ethiopian American communities from coast to coast claimed Zara as their daughter, proof that heritage could be strength rather than burden. Her story demonstrated how cultural identity becomes power when honored rather than hidden. German media praised her linguistic skills, while Ethiopian outlets celebrated her as a bridge between nations. Victor's attempted damage control backfired spectacularly. His hastily arranged press conference lasted exactly 7 minutes before collapsing under the weight of questions he couldn't answer. Why were you speaking German to hide conversations from staff you assumed were too uneducated to understand? The first reporter asked. That's a ridiculous characterization of, Victor began. Did you believe your maid was intellectually inferior to you? The second reporter interrupted. Victor stormed out after 2 questions, his arrogance intact even as his world crumbled around him. The press conference became another viral moment, cementing his reputation as someone who learned nothing from his own destruction. Universities across America created transition programs inspired by Zara's journey, helping educated immigrants navigate credential recognition and career transitions. Her 847 days of strategic self-improvement became a template for preparation meeting opportunity. Community colleges developed Zara programs, offering business law, professional English, and industry-specific training. When CNN finally secured Zara's first major interview, her grace under pressure demonstrated the difference between character earned and status inherited. I didn't expose Mr. Blackstone for insulting me, she said, her voice calm and dignified. I exposed him for breaking laws while assuming I was too ignorant to matter. Every person cleaning your office has a story, dreams, and dignity that deserve recognition. The imagery of that week became iconic. FBI agents carrying evidence boxes while Zara's humble apartment overflowed with interview requests and flowers from supporters worldwide. Her brother Dawit watched CNN coverage from his hospital bed in Ethiopia, tears of pride streaming down his face. Meanwhile, foreclosure signs appeared overnight at Victor's mansion, a visual metaphor for how quickly arrogance can become ruin. Corporate America began fundamentally rethinking assumptions about service workers. Cultural competence training became standard practice as the Zara effect changed hiring practices across industries. Companies realized that dismissing talent based on current circumstances represented massive missed opportunities. Service industry workers organized nationally, using Zara's story as inspiration for better treatment and recognition. Their motto, "Building bridges instead of walls," became the rallying cry for workplace dignity movements across the country. If you've ever been judged by your job instead of your intelligence, Zara's story proves that competence always wins. Type competence if you believe in recognizing hidden talent and treating everyone with dignity. But Zara's transformation from invisible maid to national hero was about to take an even more surprising turn, one that would change the justice system itself. 6 months later, the woman who cleaned Victor's toilets would be sitting in federal court, not as a witness, but as the expert helping prosecute the biggest corporate crime case in a decade. Individual excellence had created systemic change, proving that in America, education and preparation can lift anyone above their circumstances. 6 months after that devastating dinner party, the Southern District of New York Federal Courthouse witnessed the most symbolic role reversal in corporate crime history. Victor Blackstone shuffled into the courtroom wearing an orange jumpsuit and ankle shackles, his billion-dollar empire reduced to prison-issued clothing and federal custody. The man who had once timed bathroom breaks now had every minute of his day controlled by corrections officers. Through the same courthouse doors, Dr. Zara Kidane entered wearing a tailored Navy suit, carrying a briefcase filled with expert analysis that would help prosecute the biggest white-collar crime case in decades. Her business card read, Department of Justice Consultant, Financial Crimes Division. The visual completed the emotional journey from invisible servant to institutional authority, from cleaning floors to cleaning up corporate corruption. Judge Patricia Williams referenced Zara's recordings directly during sentencing, her words carrying the weight of systemic justice finally delivered. These weren't victimless crimes, Mr. Blackstone. They were enabled by a system that renders service workers invisible, allowing you to commit felonies while assuming your victims were too ignorant to matter. You destroyed thousands of lives through your arrogance and illegal schemes. Victor's billions couldn't buy him integrity, respect, or freedom. Every dollar had proven worthless when measured against character. Zara's principles, built through education, perseverance, and moral strength, had given her everything his money could never purchase. During his final statement before sentencing, Victor displayed the first genuine humility of his adult life. "I lost everything because I underestimated a woman who cleaned bathrooms," he said, his voice barely audible. "Turns out she was smarter, more educated, and definitely more ethical than me. I thought speaking German made me superior. It made me stupid in 2 languages." The courtroom sat in stunned silence as a man who had never accepted responsibility finally acknowledged the magnitude of his failures. Prison had begun changing Victor in ways wealth never could. He started running financial literacy programs for inmates, teaching basic economics to men who had been failed by the same system he had exploited. Some of his handwritten apology letters went unanswered, but others received forgiveness from unexpected sources. Second chances require earned trust, and Victor was learning that redemption demands consistent action, not empty words. Meanwhile, Zara's transformation into a force for justice accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. As a DOJ consultant specializing in immigrant community financial crimes, she helped recover $43 million in hidden assets from white-collar criminals who had targeted vulnerable populations. Her linguistic skills and cultural competence made her invaluable in cases involving international fraud schemes. Magazine covers featured her as Most Influential Immigrant of the Year. Her book deal, Invisible No More: How Assumptions Blind Us to Truth, commanded a 7-figure advance with translation rights sold to 12 countries. Her 847-day journey from Maid to federal consultant proved that knowledge truly is something no one can take away from you. Education had become her pathway from invisibility to influence. Personal victories multiplied alongside professional success. Her brother Dawood's surgery had been fully funded through DOJ rewards for exposing criminal activity. He was now in his 2nd year of medical school, following his sister's example of preparation meeting opportunity. Their mother visited America for the first time to watch Zara receive humanitarian awards at the Ethiopian embassy, where diplomats honored her as a cultural bridge builder who had elevated both nations' reputations. Harvard University offered her a full professorship in economics, recognizing expertise that had been hidden behind a cleaning uniform for nearly 3 years. The ripple effects of the Blackstone case created systemic changes across multiple institutions. Business schools now required studying the Blackstone case in ethics courses, examining how corporate arrogance enables criminal behavior. Sensitivity training about assumptions and cultural competence became standard practice as companies realized their liability exposure when employees felt safe reporting illegal activity. 3 additional tech CEOs were investigated using methods Zara had pioneered: documenting conversations, understanding legal frameworks, and building comprehensive evidence files. Service industry workers organized nationally for respect and recognition, using her story as proof that dignity and intelligence exist at every economic level. Zara now used her multilingual abilities to help other immigrants navigate the justice system, transforming her German fluency from a secret weapon into a tool for community building. Immigration attorneys regularly consulted her about cases involving educated professionals trapped in survival jobs. The visual transformation was complete. Federal agents now toured Victor's empty penthouse as evidence in ongoing investigations, while Zara worked from a corner office with views of the same Manhattan skyline she had once cleaned around. Her PhD diploma hung proudly on the wall beside photos of her with Dawood at his medical school graduation ceremony. The woman who was once invisible now shaped policy affecting millions of immigrants. She hadn't just found her voice. She had become a voice for the voiceless, proving that individual courage can create institutional change. Her viral moment had created lasting reform. Social media's power for immediate consequences had led to systematic justice and corporate accountability measures that protected vulnerable workers nationwide. If Zara's journey from invisible to influential inspired you, subscribe to see more stories of people who refuse to accept others' limitations. Drop "worthy" if you believe everyone deserves respect regardless of their circumstances. But the most powerful transformation wasn't Zara's career success or Victor's punishment. It was what happened when she returned to that penthouse one final time, and what it revealed about the true meaning of dignity. The circle was about to close in the most unexpected way possible. 6 months after that devastating dinner party, the Southern District of New York Federal Courthouse witnessed the most symbolic role reversal in corporate crime history. Victor Blackstone shuffled into the courtroom wearing an orange jumpsuit and ankle shackles, his billion-dollar empire reduced to prison-issued clothing and federal custody. The man who had once timed bathroom breaks now had every minute of his day controlled by corrections officers. Through the same courthouse doors, Dr. Zara Kidane entered wearing a tailored Navy suit, carrying a briefcase filled with expert analysis that would help prosecute the biggest white-collar crime case in decades. Her business card read, Department of Justice Consultant, Financial Crimes Division. The visual completed the emotional journey from invisible servant to institutional authority, from cleaning floors to cleaning up corporate corruption. Judge Patricia Williams referenced Zara's recordings directly during sentencing, her words carrying the weight of systemic justice finally delivered. These weren't victimless crimes, Mr. Blackstone. They were enabled by a system that renders service workers invisible, allowing you to commit felonies while assuming your victims were too ignorant to matter. You destroyed thousands of lives through your arrogance and illegal schemes. Victor's billions couldn't buy him integrity, respect, or freedom. Every dollar had proven worthless when measured against character. Zara's principles, built through education, perseverance, and moral strength, had given her everything his money could never purchase. During his final statement before sentencing, Victor displayed the first genuine humility of his adult life. I lost everything because I underestimated a woman who cleaned bathrooms, he said, his voice barely audible. Turns out she was smarter, more educated, and definitely more ethical than me. I thought speaking German made me superior. It made me stupid in 2 languages. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as a man who had never accepted responsibility finally acknowledged the magnitude of his failures. Prison had begun changing Victor in ways wealth never could. He started running financial literacy programs for inmates, teaching basic economics to men who had been failed by the same system he had exploited. Some of his handwritten apology letters went unanswered, but others received forgiveness from unexpected sources. Second chances require earned trust, and Victor was learning that redemption demands consistent action, not empty words. Meanwhile, Zara's transformation into a force for justice accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. As a DOJ consultant specializing in immigrant community financial crimes, she helped recover $43 million in hidden assets from white-collar criminals who had targeted vulnerable populations. Her linguistic skills and cultural competence made her invaluable in cases involving international fraud schemes. Magazine covers featured her as Most Influential Immigrant of the Year. Her book deal, Invisible No More: How Assumptions Blind Us to Truth, commanded a 7-figure advance with translation rights sold to 12 countries. Her 847-day journey from Maid to federal consultant proved that knowledge truly is something no one can take away from you. Education had become her pathway from invisibility to influence. Personal victories multiplied alongside professional success. Her brother Dawood's surgery had been fully funded through DOJ rewards for exposing criminal activity. He was now in his 2nd year of medical school, following his sister's example of preparation meeting opportunity. Their mother visited America for the first time to watch Zara receive humanitarian awards at the Ethiopian embassy, where diplomats honored her as a cultural bridge builder who had elevated both nations' reputations. Harvard University offered her a full professorship in economics, recognizing expertise that had been hidden behind a cleaning uniform for nearly 3 years. The ripple effects of the Blackstone case created systemic changes across multiple institutions. Business schools now required studying the Blackstone case in ethics courses, examining how corporate arrogance enables criminal behavior. Sensitivity training about assumptions and cultural competence became standard practice as companies realized their liability exposure when employees felt safe reporting illegal activity. 3 additional tech CEOs were investigated using methods Zara had pioneered: documenting conversations, understanding legal frameworks, and building comprehensive evidence files. Service industry workers organized nationally for respect and recognition, using her story as proof that dignity and intelligence exist at every economic level. Zara now used her multilingual abilities to help other immigrants navigate the justice system, transforming her German fluency from a secret weapon into a tool for community building. Immigration attorneys regularly consulted her about cases involving educated professionals trapped in survival jobs. The visual transformation was complete. Federal agents now toured Victor's empty penthouse as evidence in ongoing investigations, while Zara worked from a corner office with views of the same Manhattan skyline she had once cleaned around. Her PhD diploma hung proudly on the wall beside photos of her with Dawit at his medical school graduation ceremony. The woman who was once invisible now shaped policy affecting millions of immigrants. She hadn't just found her voice, she had become a voice for the voiceless, proving that individual courage can create institutional change. Her viral moment had created lasting reform. Social media's power for immediate consequences had led to systematic justice and corporate accountability measures that protected vulnerable workers nationwide. If Zara's journey from invisible to influential inspired you, subscribe to see more stories of people who refuse to accept others' limitations. Drop worthy if you believe everyone deserves respect regardless of their circumstances. But the most powerful transformation wasn't Zara's career success or Victor's punishment. It was what happened when she returned to that penthouse one final time, and what it revealed about the true meaning of dignity. The circle was about to close in the most unexpected way possible. Hey Soul Thread family, if you'd like to support the channel and help us keep creating these stories of hope, I've pinned a support link in the comments below. Thank you for being part of this journey. Being seen isn't about demanding attention, Zara reflected as she looked across the skyline where thousands of invisible people were preparing for their own moments. It's about revealing the excellence that was always there, waiting for the right moment to shine. In America, that moment can come to anyone willing to prepare for it. Every viewer has felt invisible, underestimated, or judged by circumstances. Zara's story proves that character, education, and respect create lasting success while pride without substance leads to inevitable fall. The Maid had become the master not through revenge, but through revealing the power that preparation and dignity can unleash when opportunity finally knocks.